Hello, we are going to talk about how to manage your mind. My name is Bex Beltran. I am a resistance coach, a podcaster, and a journal and notebook creator. So, the name of the podcast is Release Your Resistance because that's the kind of coaching I help people do. I help people recognize the resistance that we all have that holds us back from doing what we want, and I teach how to release that resistance. So that's what today's workshop is all about, how to manage your mind, how to recognize and then release that resistance. And when I think about how I have managed or maybe even sometimes mismanaged my mind, I like to think of my mind in terms of my primitive brain and then my more logical, rational brain. And oftentimes, my primitive brain will offer a thought or an idea or a suggestion. And without even considering it or wondering if it's the best one for me or if it's aligned with my intentions, oftentimes I'll just go along with it. That's when I'm not managing my mind, right? When I just get an impulse or an urge or an idea or a suggestion, and I just go right along with it without question. So that's the perfect example of not managing a mind. And I have a visual metaphor to share with you. I like to think it's like a funny metaphor. It's a Saturday Night Live skit from a few years ago. And I think it perfectly illustrates when we don't manage our mind. So maybe you've seen this skit. If not, you can go onto YouTube after this and you can look up Kristen Wiig and Jason Sudeikis, and you can just kind of see. And if you haven't seen this before, how the skits usually play out with these two characters is they will find themselves in a situation or a scenario, and a question will be posed, and the woman will answer, and her answer will be completely ridiculous or not even relevant to the question asked. And instead of saying, oh no, that's not what they meant, or that's actually not relevant to this question, the man will just agree and repeat whatever the woman says. So I like to use this as kind of a funny metaphor for sometimes what happens to me when I am not in managing my mind mode. A situation will present itself to me, and sometimes my mind just gives me something that's not even relevant to what I want, or not helpful, or just doesn't make any sense, or it's not true. And instead of pushing back a little bit or being curious and wondering like, where did that come from? I'll just go along with that silly, non-relevant, misaligned suggestion. So I like to think of that initial bad suggestion or misaligned or nonsensical suggestion as something coming from my primitive mind. And then the person who could correct or redirect is me. And sometimes I do, but when I'm not managing my mind, I don't. So I just thought it would be funny to kind of share that visual with you and to point out, maybe you feel the same way. Sometimes I just believe whatever my mind says without question, without checking for accuracy, without checking to see if it's helpful or not. Sometimes I just believe that very first thing. So I have 3 suggestions about how you can manage your mind. The first suggestion is for you to become the watcher of your mind, to actually pay attention and notice what your mind is offering you. The second suggestion is to separate what is a thought, what is a fact. So once we are able to separate what we're thinking, what our mind is offering us from what is real in the world, then we can have a little bit more power. And finally, we can start believing that the thoughts that we think are optional. First of all, they're not factual. That's what we learned in step 2, that we separated the thoughts from the facts. And then once we know they are not reality, then we realize we get to choose which ones we keep and follow and believe. So let's dive in deeper. First, we're going to learn how to become the watcher of your mind. So what are some things that the mind suggests? So in my case, I'll just give you some random examples that my mind sometimes suggests to me. My mind sometimes offers me the option of don't try. Oh, you got an idea to do something new or different? Don't try that. Don't even try. Right? Or sometimes my mind will tell me, you don't know how. Okay, so I got this idea to do something new or different. my brain will just say, well, you don't know how to do that. You don't know how. Or sometimes my mind will just tell me, this will not work. So again, this idea for something fun, new, different, adventurous, no. The mind says, this will not work. It has not done it before. It does not see what's happening in the future, but it just tells me with certainty, this will not work. So those are some things that the mind suggests to me. And maybe you've had some versions of these suggestions from your own mind. My mind also likes to tell me to wait. If I'm getting ready to do something, or if I'm getting excited about something, or if I'm wondering if something will work, oh, you know what? Let's just hold off. Let's just wait. Let's just give it some more time. Let's just collect some more information before we go forward with this, right? The other thing that my mind suggests to me, not just these thoughts, but also behaviors. So sometimes my mind will suggest that I do a behavior or take action that I don't even really want to take. For example, my mind likes to suggest the behavior of snacking when I'm not even hungry, or the behavior of waiting or procrastinating when I actually want something to be completed. So that's something else to be the watcher of. Notice when your mind is offering you the behavior of something that you don't really want, that's not really aligned with what you want for yourself. The other thing that we can notice when we're watching our mind is exaggeration. My mind likes to take everything to the extreme and likes to be hyperbolic, right? My mind delights in hyperbole. So my mind will tell me something like, I have no time. Oh, really? Literally, like you have no time? Like the world has now ended? No, of course, you have a minute. Now you have another minute. Like you have all the time in the world. Or my mind will tell me, I have no money. There's no money. There's no money. I have no money. But when I look in my bank account, I can see the money that I have. But for some reason, my mind likes to pull that balance all the way down to zero. Or maybe my mind will tell me I have no energy. I just can't even lift a finger. Well, literally, I am lifting a finger right now. So of course I have energy, but sometimes my mind just likes to exaggerate and say no. Or I've never done it before. Wow. So the mind likes to use this one as a promise in conjunction with one of these up here at the top of the screen that this won't work and you don't know how. My mind likes to tell me I've never done something before, even if I have done it before. And maybe you've experienced this as well. So that's just some examples there of some exaggeration. And then the most famous one that my mind likes to offer me is that something will take forever. Like it will tell me the earth will end before you finish this project, so might as well not even start. Well, I know for sure it will not take a week to fold laundry. It probably won't even take an hour to fold laundry. Maybe it will take maybe 15 minutes, maybe probably more like 10, but my mind tells me it will take forever and it uses that tone of voice. So of course, I don't want to do it. So these are all things that the mind suggests, and all of these are resistance, and that is what is holding you back from trying the things or going or taking the step or putting yourself out there or showing up or trying something new. So that's the first thing, is to be the watcher of your mind and notice these different suggestions and options that your mind is offering you. Now, the next suggestion is for you to separate thoughts from facts. And if you've never done this before, if you've never really gotten very specific, like I'm about to suggest, this might blow your mind a little bit, because once you really start to separate what is a thought and what is a fact, you get so much power back and you get so much awareness. So how do you separate thoughts from facts? What am I talking about? Well, in order to check if something is a thought or if it's a fact, the first question you could ask is, does every single person on this planet agree with this information? So if everyone on this call would agree with something and everyone in the world would agree with it, then we can pretty much say it's a fact, all right? The other thing that we can ask ourselves is it neutral? This gets us down into this first number one down here, or in other words, are there any adjectives or modifiers or judgment? So if we use an example like, here's a fact, I'm not good at technology. Oh, interesting. Would everyone on this call agree that I am not good at technology? No, maybe someone on this call is thinking, well, she's better at technology than I am. I think she's probably pretty good at technology, right? Or maybe we're looking at number one and we're saying, well, she's saying good at technology. What is good? What is bad, right? And then also, what is technology? Are we talking phones? Are we talking computers? Are we talking databases? Are we talking servers, right? So this is all up to interpretation. Therefore, not everyone would agree. And therefore, the phrase, I am not good at technology, is not a fact, even if we've said it to ourselves multiple times. The second way to check if something is a thought or if it's a fact is to ask yourself if you are predicting the future. So going back to the example that I gave when we were talking about being the watcher of your mind, to say this will not work, this is you predicting the possibility or probability of the success of something in the future. So it hasn't actually happened yet. We're just saying in the future, this thing that I'm about to try or attempt or experiment with, it either will work or it won't work. And my brain is telling me it won't work. Oh, so my brain is telling me what is about to happen in the future. So that's not reality. It hasn't happened yet. Not everyone would agree that it will or won't work. So those are steps number, the first and second question right there, we know it's a thought and not a fact. And then number three is, would you be able to, if necessary, prove it in the court of law with actual physical evidence? Like, could we take a photo of it? Could there be a recording of it? Could we submit something into evidence to prove that this did or did not take place, that this does or does not exist, that this is or is not a fact? And so anytime we're thinking about what is going on in our minds, if we can separate it out and say, well, would I be able to submit like a screenshot of it? In that case, that's a fact. Everyone would agree that they can see the screenshot. Everyone would agree that this exists, that this did happen. Now, what I think about it, that's my thought. I can separate out my thought from the fact. So if we say, this is kind of a late workshop, it starts late in the day. I wish it wasn't so late. Calling something late is an adjective, it's a modifier, and not everyone would agree that it's late. Some people think this is actually way too early, right? So if we just say, okay, this workshop starts at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, that is a fact. We can see the meeting planner, we can see the Zoom information, we can see the invite, we can look at the clock on our computer when we started this workshop. We know, and everyone would agree, that's a fact. But when we call it late or early, that's when we get into thought category. All right, so I have an example here. Let's see what the example is. Maybe you felt this one in your own life. This won't work. Okay, so we've used this one a couple times. It sounds like a fact. Maybe you can find evidence of why it won't work because you've never done it before, because you don't have the resources, because other people aren't helping you, because all the reasons why it won't work. But because this statement is happening in the future and you can't predict the future, then it is a thought and it's not a fact. Okay, here's a test. Let's see if you can identify where are the facts. Is it a fact to say it's 100 degrees or is it a fact to say it's hot? Obviously, 100 degrees is the fact. We can see it on the thermometer. Scientists can measure the temperature. We could submit proof of the temperature, and that would be a fact. My to-do list, that's something that's on paper or maybe digitally on my phone. That could be subpoenaed. I could print a copy of it. I could email it to you. I could show it to you on the screen. My to-do list is a fact. When I say I will never get this all done, ooh, that's my thought, and it's a prediction of the future, and it's an exaggeration, isn't it, to say I'll never, not until the end of time, really, I'll never get it all done? So that's how our brain likes to offer us things, and now we know we can watch these things as they come up, and then we can separate and notice what is a fact and what is a thought. And then your next suggestion is for you to start believing that your thoughts are optional. So just because a thought comes to you doesn't mean you have to opt in, doesn't mean you have to keep it, doesn't mean you have to believe it, you don't have to repeat it. You can actually choose which thoughts you want to keep and repeat and work on and hold on to and which thoughts you want to forget or dismiss or not even pay any attention to. So this gives you all your power back. If you can choose the thoughts that help you and ignore the thoughts that aren't as helpful, that's you being intentional about what you think. So here's what we want to do when we're believing that thoughts are optional. We want to ask, how does a thought make me feel? If a thought makes me feel great, optimistic, happy, hopeful, curious, of course, those are really good feelings and those help me get what I want in life. So then I want to continue to think that those thoughts that make me feel those ways. I can ask if this thought is helpful or if it's not helpful. So if the thought is not helpful, if it's not serving me, I don't have to keep thinking it. If the thought makes me feel terrible, if the thought makes me do things that are outside of my nature, if the thought keeps me from doing things that are helpful to me, I don't need to keep thinking that thought. And just like the couple that I shared with you at the beginning, just because a thought comes into your mind does not mean that you have to believe it or repeat it. Before we end today and before we get to our discussion, I also just want to share a few disclaimers, just in case anything that I said today was a little confusing or that your brain is now freaking out about what I shared. So I just want to point out, I am not suggesting that you only think in facts, that you only focus your brain on what is factual. Of course, we're going to think thoughts all day long, right? Of course we are. So I'm not saying facts are good and thoughts are bad. I'm just saying notice the difference and don't tell yourself that you must believe something that is not a fact. We do it all the time. We believe these thoughts that sound very factual and they're not helpful, but we continue to say them and believe them as if they are facts. So once you notice the difference between a fact and a thought, a fact is reality, it's reality. You accept it, you accept reality. A thought is optional. A thought, it might be helpful, it might be unhelpful, it might be relevant, it might be irrelevant, it might be true, it might be false, right? That's where that optionality of thoughts comes in. So of course, think your thoughts and choose your thoughts to serve you. So be intentional about what you think. And the other disclaimer that I want to give is predicting the future is a thought, not a fact, because it's in the future. It's not reality. It hasn't happened yet. I think predictions all day long. I love to intentionally think predictions. I'm fine with predicting the future as long as they are helpful to me. So I love to think I'm going to do a great job at this. All these people who come to this workshop, they're going to like me. This is going to work out so well. Everything is going to turn out fine. These are all future statements, right? They're all predicting the future, but they make me feel great. They give me motivation. They make me feel excited. So of course, I'm going to intentionally choose to think these future proclaiming thoughts. Why wouldn't I, right? There's no downside at all. My question to you, for you to think about, what thoughts are you currently believing that might be holding you back from what you really want? Notice those. Check to see if they're facts. Are the facts holding you back? Or are things that you've been telling yourself are facts? Are they actually thoughts? And therefore they are optional. Just kind of notice those. And there is a tool that you can use. You can find out more about this tool online. I have some podcast episodes about it. You can Google it. It's called The Model. But basically, anything going on for you, you can plug it in to this tool. You can identify what is the fact or the circumstance, and then you can separate and figure out what is my thought about this circumstance. You can check in to see, how does thinking this thought make me feel? And when I'm feeling this way, what do I do or what don't I do? And when I'm doing or not doing those things, what do I get? What do I create for myself? So that is a fun model that you can plug any situation in your life into in any direction. You can start with how you're feeling and back it up to see what the thought is, or see what you're doing or not doing and back it up to see what feeling is creating that doing or not doing. We can work more on this. If you want more help with it, you can reach out to me or come to one of my future workshops. But this is a great tool to use. So this would be the perfect time for questions.